So you're making your money back in almost 2 years.
That's almost a 43.6% return, and that's before the appreciation.
So today we have Fernando. I thought it was very interesting, his business model. So Fernando is a buy and hold investor, and he buys properties, rents them out, but he has the way that he does his business is a little bit different, and I find it very, very interesting. Enough for us, I wanted him to kind of show you guys what he has going on. So Fernando has found a hack, we'll call it, to where he is doubling his cash flow and his profit by renting out, instead of renting out the whole property on a yearly lease, he rents out by the room.
Okay, so let's just start with so you have your traditional lease where people pay you like a monthly amount, and then when you have a dynamic where you have multiple bedrooms, depending on where you're located and what the demographic is, what it really centers around is a need, right? So sometimes like this particular property is what the total purchase price was for both of them, what the interest rate was, what my down payment for each was, what I spent total, and the total mortgage balance, right? So these, with taxes and insurance, everything included, here are my mortgage payments, more or less about $4,000 total together are like $8,000, right? So just right there, looking at that at $8,000 together, and you're seeing some of these units that are 3.2s that they're like, 3 or 3,500. You're pretty much kind of breaking even.
Right now, let's say any of us was to go get approved for a conventional loan or even an FHA loan, with how high interest rates are and the rent to property value ratio, where right now, and I speak mainly for South Florida, and I would say the main major markets in the States, you're at a point where your cash flow, if you were to rent it out by the year, you pretty much would break even, and in some cases even lose money. Or currently now, the problem that we have is you kind of have to pick, right? Like you're in a major market like Miami, you're probably not going to cash flow, but you'll make your money in the long run on appreciation, which is not a bad play. But now we see that there's more, and that's why I find this so interesting. So kind of walk us through, you have an example that you're going to show us, right?
Yeah, I have an example. So
when you saw it, I'd like if you can share with us, like, when you looked at the deal, how much was it going to cash flow? And then once you applied your renting by the room model, like kind of like the before and after, right?
Yeah.
Because I think that will kind of help us bring that point home. And I think it'll really open up our eyes to look at these deals as we talk to sellers a little bit differently too.
Yeah, for sure. Great sort of condition and still be able to somewhat win. So I kind of came in with like a worst case scenario, still winning on a worst case scenario. Okay. So this is where I got a little more aggressive. So what I started to do is, because I'm charging them a premium and there's no one single person that's going to volunteer to put like the water or the electricity into their name, I have to now absorb that and calculate that cost into my metrics, right? So here I have like the water for each of the buildings, total 4, you have electricity for each unit. I broke all these down, 1,200, and then I do 80 for the lawn. And this is monthly. So my total monthly payments or expenses are $9,680, almost $10,000, starting to get up there, right? But this is the breakdown I have for each of the units. So now you see, I'm taking a 3-bedroom, 2-bath. I'm taking the first room. There's two people living in that room. They're each splitting $600, right? So now you see the numbers, right? So the second room, the third room, and you'll see that these are all A. Like A, these two are in the front. That's like the first door you see. And then like the second door you see is like the A1. And then the third door are the Bs. And then the B1s is the fourth door on that building picture, right? So when you start adding these up, it starts to really make more sense, right? So here you see a hybrid model where you see in room 3 that I'm charging $535 per person. So in one of the larger bedrooms, like the master bedrooms, there's 4 guys that have like mattresses on the floor, and they're each paying $535. Now, based on their income, if they're roofers and they're making $2,500 a month, this is 20% of their total income. Like they're sending all their money back home. They're partying on the weekends. They're sending all their money back to wherever country they're from, because they're building their future over there, right? So it still works out for everybody. So when you add all this up, total rent revenue starts to be $18,400. So now it's a big jump, right? I also put note that each of the 3.2s, they each had a washer and dryer, because the 3.2s are basically supposed to have almost like a home type feel. So they come with the washer and dryer. So what I did was I segmented the washer and dryers so that you can access them from the back, and I turned them into coin so that I could, in case any of the washer and dryers broke down, I wouldn't be liable to fix them as a landlord. They were going to basically fix themselves off of their income. So total,
and they bring $1,200.
They bring in $1,200 a month. So now here's the breakdown. So you have total revenue, $19,600. My mortgage expenses, $9,680. My monthly profit is $9,920. Yearly profit is estimated at about $120. So based on what I put down on my down payment and looking at what I'm making yearly, that's almost a 43.6% return, and that's before the appreciation.
So you're making your money back in almost 2 years.
If I didn't have appreciation and this was just cash flow alone, I would be making my money back in 2 years.
Because you invested $200,000, right? 200 something.
I invested total $272 in total. The purchase price was $1,090. So that's 25%. That's a 25% down payment. I'm not like factoring like the closing costs and all that stuff, but that's a pretty rough estimate of what's happening over there right now.
So the before was it 3,400 times 4? That was the long term.
3,400 times 4. That's more or less what you're going to pay to rent a house. That's a 3.2. I can go back to that Zillow.
3,400 times 4. So we went from 13,600 to 19,600.
Correct. Yeah. This is
Yeah. So to summarize, 3 bedrooms, 2 baths, for sure 2 baths. It sounds like a minimum.
Yeah.
2 baths, 2 bedrooms and up. Parking matters, location matters. I can also see it being this being a trouble if like the property is so far into the neighborhood where it takes anybody that's walking or taking the bus, or giving a really hard time to get to and from home. No HOA.
huge. No HOA. You got to be.
And then definitely like the layout matters, especially if you're in a 2-bedroom situation. What else can you make out of it? I like to kind of summarize and like what should your bell go off for when looking at these kind of deals, especially when we're talking to sellers. These are the kind of questions that we can ask to look for opportunity.
Absolutely, getting a walkthrough and having access points and having front, back door entry. Some apartments like only have one-way entry depending on what year they were built. So getting more entry and exit points are always going to help you as well. And seeing the layout of the room, where the bathrooms are located, how the rooms are located, how are they structured. All that's going to help you when you're looking at the property, kind of allow you to envision what the property could potentially be if you made some minor adjustments.
And another thing, when you're looking at the layout, so here in South Florida, wherever you see a window is usually they'll permit a door. So
Okay.
that's a shortcut that I learned, and it really went a long way. So to get a door like in the middle of a brick wall, they want engineering, they want this, they want that. But if you're more like extending a window and making it into a door, it's a lot more. It's way more likely that they'll allow it. And so that's where when I used to do this back then, like I didn't know this, and I would think like, oh, I can't do it. I only have one entryway, right? But then when I learned that, it's so easy to pull a door permit. And especially if you're converting it from a door to a window, installing it, everything is very, very handyman friendly.
That's awesome. And especially when you're the owner and it's like a residential property, you can go pull the permit yourself and get the work done yourself too, which is great.